I'm your host, Sahil, here with Rahi and Roy. Boys, it was an exciting international break. And there were some teams that did so well and some teams that did not so well. Of course, one of them being the Japanese.
Asia was incredible. The qualifiers were fantastic. And I think, Roy, we just found ourselves a real Asian superpower. This team is on fire, man. The Blue Samurai, baby.
So too, man. These guys are killers. These guys are steamrolling everyone they play in this World Cup qualifying campaign.
Yeah.
It is so impressive. It's so stylish. It's fun to watch. And I just love Japan in general. I love the culture. I love the people. And it's reflected in the way they play, the discipline, the work ethic. It's incredible. I love this.
So let's talk a little bit more. Obviously, there was a bunch of other teams in Asia that had very good rounds. We spoke at length about Indonesia, our Indonesian fans out there. We talked a little bit about some of the good results by Uzbekistan. But today we wanted to focus on the team that has really come out of the top ranks of Asia and has really established themselves as a world superpower. We'll discuss that in a second. If you've been enjoying these videos, podcasts, all that, please subscribe to the channel and listen to it on audio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your audio. All right, boys, let's rock and roll. Japan, Nippon, as they say. Roy and I have both been to the country. Roy, have you been to the country or no?
Not yet. I'm saving it it's going to be a special trip, so I'm really waiting.
That's surprising since you've been you're such a world traveler, and me and Roy and me actually beat you on this one. That's exciting. That's impressive.
It is very weird, honestly. I do travel. I love to travel. I don't know why I haven't been there. I've been planning to go. I really want to go, and now more than ever because man, this team is fun to watch. Love to go watch a home qualifier or something like that, an Asian Cup, because not only are they winning, but Roy, they're such a fun team to watch. They attack, and when they win big. By the way, Germany knows all too well. They know how to rack up the goals, Roy.
Yeah. And we were talking about this earlier today, how they've modeled themselves after the Brazil of old. The old Brazilian national teams, their style, their tiki-taka, the beautiful way they dribble and play and create opportunities. This is how the Japanese Federation decided to structure the tactics, the discipline, the way they coach these players. And it's showing, man, because they are creating gorgeous.
There are a lot of Japanese in Brazil, right? There's like some cultural connection there.
Yeah, it's interesting story. So when the J League was first established in the 1990s, they basically, at that time, Brazil was obviously killing. We're going to talk about Brazil later in this episode as well. Things have gone in a different direction for Brazil, and we'll talk about that. But they basically fashioned the Japanese style of football after Brazil because then they love the way they play, and you see it reflected today. It's all systems go, run all the time, super technical type play, and it's fascinating. And I just want to talk about a little bit, boys, because do we feel now, okay, they beat Bahrain and China. Again,
they didn't just beat them.
They smashed them.
Dismantled them.
They wiped them off.
And so did they have, for you guys, did they have the best round of any team? But more important than that, in the entire world, I'm talking about in these last group of qualifiers during the international break. But more so than that is, can we firmly say that this iteration of Japan, not Brazil. This iteration of Japan is now a world football superpower. Yeah, it looks like Brazil is a superpower.
Are they a superpower? You mean like outside of Asia? Are they superpower? Are they one of the top 10 teams in the world? Let's say that's the question.
That is the question.
I think they probably scored the most goals of any team in this window. That's probably a fact. If you look across the world,
it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
I was going to say whoever played San Marino is usually the one that has the most goals in the window. But they won. Exactly. They won their first game. Was it ever? Is it their first game ever?
Yes. First game, competitive match.
Liechtenstein. They beat Liechtenstein 1-0, I think it was.
Yes.
Insane.
But I do think there's still a little ways to go. Not a long ways. You know who Japan reminds me of in this moment? I'm actually wondering, who do you think they remind me of? It's a small country in Europe that has had unprecedented success on the
Ah.
international level.
I
Over
know
the
the
past few
answer.
years.
I know the
Okay.
answer. Roy, you know the
USA.
answer?
That's my guess.
That country in Europe? Yeah.
It's
Small
Croatia.
country.
I know.
Croatia is what you're going to
Right.
say.
Yeah, okay.
They
I see what
remind me of Croatia because, and the team they lost to in the last World Cup in penalties, because this is a team that's on the cusp, has
Mhm,
all the
mhm,
players, has a midfield to die for. A midfield, every country in the world, nearly every country in the world, aside from Spain and Croatia themselves, perhaps, is jealous of this midfield. The first line and the second line. They have Mitoma, who might be one of the best wingers in the world. They yet, though, have to win a competitive knockout game. That's where Croatia was before that World Cup in 2018. They hadn't really won a big knockout game. That's the problem for Japan. Belgium, remember that World Cup? They were up 2-0 against Belgium, and then that heartbreaking loss 3-2. Then Croatia, this World Cup, they looked the better team for most of the game, and then the penalties were so poor. They're right there. But they need to have that signature victory. And I think they might get it, Roy. I think then it's going to be a period of sustained success. I think we might be there.
I want to talk about the lineup
Yeah.
real quick. I do want to mention one thing. Obviously, the disappointing loss to Iran in the Asian Cup. So
Asian Cup.
Lost to Iran in the last minute. But here's who you have to deal with when you're playing Japan, right? So you have Mitoma, Morita, Endo, and Doan. That was the starting four against Bahrain. Then then coming off the bench, you have Asano, you have Kubo, you have Ito. These guys all play in European clubs. They're all fantastic players in their own right. This is a lot to deal with for another team, Roy, if you're playing against them.
It's a ton. It's a ton to deal with. This is a truly impressive team with stars. They have stars on their team, and it's more than just one, which is what makes them so impressive. To Rocky's point, I don't think they're a superpower yet. We need to see them actually perform at a World Cup. That's what needs to happen next. And they need to truly dominate that region. Losing to Iran in the Asian Cup, that kind of pushes them to the other direction. You can't be a superpower and lose to Iran in the Asian Cup and not be winning that cup regularly. So my big thing is they need to perform. But as far as I know, Japan has that 100-year plan. I don't know if you all read this, heard about it. They have a 100-year plan that by, I think it's 2090 or something crazy. They know this takes a long time. They know this process takes a long time, but it's literally like 2090, they will win a World Cup. That is the plan. It is a guarantee within the country that we will win a World Cup by that year. So we won't get to see it, guys, if that plan.
Will they be using AI to win that World Cup?
We'll use AI to allow our minds to continue living on so we could witness it, hopefully. But that's the plan, and I think they're going to get there a lot sooner than they
I
have.
hope so.
I think it's going to be way sooner.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. Let's talk about how they got here a little bit, because Roy, I don't know if you saw this when you visited Japan, but I was surprised to see that everywhere I'd go, I'd see people playing football in little areas, and it's not something that I thought I would experience in Japan, but it was definitely the case. So what have they done since the 90s when we talked about the establishment of the J League? What have they done to bring it to this point?
Because isn't baseball the big sport, Roy? Or was the big sport?
Baseball was and continues to be a massive sport, but I think soccer, football has overtaken it. And there are so many reasons why, so many things that they've been building behind the scenes over the years. You mentioned something you saw a lot in Japan, Sahil. You know what I saw a lot? I saw a lot of people on the subways from age 3 to age 95 on their phones watching anime, reading a manga, reading some kind of comic book. Everyone on the subways, in the streets, waiting for stuff, waiting for food. This is what they're doing. Why does this matter? Because a massive part of Japanese culture is absorbing this content. What is the most popular content for the past 20, 30 years? Have you heard of Captain Tsubasa? Have you heard of Blue Lock? Have you heard of Tom Byer, an American who went to Japan because the U.S. didn't want him to develop their youth systems, went to Japan, founded the most popular manga, the most popular children's television show. What's it focused on? Developing technical skills in soccer. This is something deliberate. This is something Japan's been focused on for generations, And it's something that's working. Talk to Keisuke Honda. Talk to the players of today. Ask them if they watch Blue Lock.
Should I call them up?
Ask them if they watch Captain Tsubasa. Ask them.
Okay. I'll ask them. I'll ask them next time I see them. I'll ask them.
Next time
You have
go to
Keisuke
Japan.
Honda's number? What's happening?
Well, I'll find it.
What a beautiful culture, though. What a beautiful culture. I found it. Think about that, Roy. Like you know, kids growing up are developing in that system, which is presented to them in a way that they can absorb. How nice is that? You know, how lovely is that? That's the thing I love about Japanese culture, man. Stuff like that. But
it's incredible. It's genius, and they're so smart, and that works in tandem with everything else they're doing. The J League, unlike Major League Soccer, works like this with the national team. The J League is there to develop talent for the national team and to grow the sport in the country. So that's working in tandem with Tom Byer. That's working in tandem with Blue Lock, with Captain Tsubasa, with all this anime movement to push soccer, to teach soccer. Everything interlocks. Everything works together. And the base layer, what's a base layer? A culture of discipline, a culture of extreme work ethic, and a culture focused on perfecting the craft. Whatever craft you're in, that culture is focused on you perfecting your craft. So all these things together has led to Japan going from never qualifying for a World Cup until 98?
Yeah.
To qualifying to every World Cup and being in this conversation for football world superpower. I think it's incredible what they've done.
There's certainly a system. And the other thing is I actually played with the Japanese team for about a year here in New York, and they are so pass first. Don't take 5 touches when you can take 3 touches.
Yeah.
Don't take the extra touch. First pass, first time ball instead of, when you don't need to take that extra touch. It's a very brilliant way of getting them to work together. The one thing I will say is that system, as important, as impressive as it is, sometimes it curbs individual brilliance. And that's where they are a little bit, is they need a player to break out and just sort of take over games. As yet, they don't have that player. They have players that could become that player.
Sure.
Mitoma's the one that comes to mind that maybe is there, but they need a bit of someone with the Ronaldo personality, someone who's a bit of an asshole. That's what they need.
It's hard. It's a culture that doesn't develop that kind of personality, that kind of asshole, loudmouth. It's not that type of culture. So it's going to be difficult to develop that leader unless they kind of break that mold, unless there's a player that moves to Europe at a younger age and gets developed there. But for the most part, I think all of these players, or at least the vast majority, are developed in the J League through the academy system, and then they get shipped out.
The irony is they're all in Europe now. The entire
Do you know that Mitoma did like a master? He wrote a paper on like how to dribble. Like there's like he has a thesis on how to dribble, and it's all like the different things you could do. He's so studied. Like that's why he's so good. It's insane.
Yeah. And he didn't start. When did he go pro? He went pro like after he finished his schooling, after he did that thesis on dribbling. I think he was 23 or something crazy. And then he goes pro, and then I forget, he gets signed for $3 million, and he just goes on to be phenomenal. An absolute superhero. It's unbelievable.
Fascinating stuff. So I want to hear from obviously all the Japanese fans out there too, and those of you in Japan. Let's hear what are your thoughts on your team? Do you think you're superpower now? Do you think you still have ways to go? Let's hear all that. One quick anecdote. I just want to say one thing based on like what you guys say in terms of discipline. When I was in Japan, I'll never forget this. Every morning I'd have eggs downstairs at the hotel I was at, and if the guy didn't make the eggs completely perfect, he would redo it. He would redo the entire thing, would not serve to me. So arigato gozaimasu out there to that man who made my eggs.